We have walked among the gods of Asgard, witnessed their triumphs and tragedies, explored the 9 realms that hang upon Yggdrasil's branches. We have seen the cosmic architecture of Norse mythology, the grand structure that holds existence together. But the gods alone do not fill the Norse cosmos. Between the divine and the mortal, in the spaces between the realms and the dark forests and deep waters, dwell countless other beings. Heroes who achieve legendary status through their deeds, monsters that embody primal fears and natural forces, spirits that inhabit the land and follow individual lives. These are the stories of the Norse told around their hearth fires on long winter nights. Tales that warned of dangers lurking beyond the circle of firelight, that celebrated those brave enough to face such dangers, that explained the unseen forces that shape luck and fate. These are not the grand cosmic dramas of Ragnarok or the creation of the world, but the stories that felt immediate and personal, that helped people understand their relationship with the land they lived on, the creatures they might encounter, the invisible forces that could help or hinder their lives. Heroes in Norse tradition are not demigods or divinely blessed champions, though they may have divine ancestry somewhere in their lineage. They are mortals, or at least mortal enough to die, who through courage, cunning, and will achieve deeds worthy of eternal memory. They slay dragons, win impossible treasures, love and lose with passion that echoes through generations. Their stories are tragic as often as triumphant. For the Norse understood that even the greatest hero must eventually fall, that glory is won through struggle and often purchased with life itself. The creatures of Norse mythology range in the cosmic, serpents that encircle the world, wolves that chase the sun, to the intimate and personal, spirits that follow individual families, beings that dwell in specific groves or stones. Some are malevolent, actively hostile to humans and gods alike. Others are neutral, concerned with their own purposes, dangerous only when provoked or encountered unwisely. Still others can be beneficent, offering aid and blessing to those who treat them with proper respect. Understanding these beings helps us understand the Norse worldview more completely. The gods might shape the grand patterns of fate, but it was these creatures and spirits that filled daily life, that made every journey potentially perilous, every success potentially aided by unseen allies, every piece of land inhabited by consciousness that must be acknowledged and honored. The Norse world was alive in ways that modern secular thinking struggles to comprehend. Every mountain had its spirit, every family its follower, every act of fortune or misfortune its explanation in the invisible realm. As we journey now through these stories and beings, we move from the realm of cosmic mythology into the realm of legend and folklore, from the concerns of gods to the experiences of mortals who must navigate a world filled with wonders and terrors. We begin with perhaps the greatest of all Norse hero tales, a saga of love and betrayal, of cursed gold and dragon slaying, of a hero whose deeds would echo through centuries of storytelling. Long before the gods marched to Ragnarok, in the ages when heroes walked the earth and dragons guarded hoards of gold, there lived a lineage called the Volsungs, descended from Odin himself. Their saga is one of the greatest in all Norse literature, a tale that weaves together fate and free will, love and vengeance, glory and doom in patterns so intricate that even the Norns might marvel at their complexity. The saga begins with Sigi, the son of Odin, but the tale truly gains its power with his descendant Volsung, who built a great hall with a massive oak tree growing through its center. Into this hall one day came an old man, Odin in disguise, though none recognized him, who thrust a sword into the oak's trunk and declared that whoever could draw it forth would own the finest blade ever forged. Many tried and failed, but Volsung's son Sigmund drew the sword easily, claiming it as his own. This was Gram, a blade of such power that it could cut through stone and steel as if they were cloth. Sigmund's life was marked by tragedy and triumph in equal measure. His sister Signy was married against her will to King Siggeir, who betrayed and murdered most of the Volsung clan. Only Sigmund survived, and with Signy's help, he eventually took revenge, burning Siggeir and his men in their hall. But Signy, having sacrificed everything for vengeance, chose to die in the flames alongside her hated husband, her duty to family finally fulfilled. Sigmund lived long and ruled well, but in his final battle, the old wanderer appeared again, Odin, reclaiming what he had given. The god shattered Gram with his spear, and Sigmund fell mortally wounded. He told his pregnant wife Hjordis to keep the broken pieces of the sword, for their unborn son would need them. That son would be Sigurd, the greatest hero of the Volsung line. Sigurd was raised by the dwarf Regan, a master smith who was also a schemer with his own dark purposes. Regan told Sigurd of a great treasure guarded by the dragon Fafnir, and he told him that Fafnir was Regan's own brother, transformed by greed and the curse that lay upon the gold he guarded. Regan offered to reforge Gram from the shattered pieces if Sigurd would slay Fafnir and claim the treasure. But what Regan did not say was that he intended to betray Sigurd afterward and take the gold for himself. The treasure Fafnir guarded had a dark history. It had belonged originally to the dwarf Andvari, who lived as a pike in a waterfall, using a magical ring called Andvaranaut to accumulate gold. Loki, traveling with Odin and Honir, had accidentally killed another dwarf and needed treasure to pay the Wergild, the blood price demanded by the dead dwarf's father. Loki caught Andvari and forced him to give up all his gold, including the ring, as Andvari surrendered it. He cursed the ring and all the gold, declaring that it would bring death to whoever possessed it. The gold passed the family of a slain dwarf, but the curse worked quickly. Fafnir and Regan's brother Otter had been killed. He was a dwarf whose death started this chain of events, and their father Hreidmar received the cursed gold as compensation. But Fafnir, consumed by greed, murdered his father and claimed the treasure for himself. He transformed into a dragon to better guard his hoard, growing larger and more terrible over the years, until he was one of the most fearsome creatures in all the lands. Regan reforged Gram, making it stronger than ever, and Sigurd tested the blade by striking the anvil, cleaving in two. With this mighty weapon, the young hero set out to face Fafnir. Following Regan's advice, Sigurd dug a pit in the path where Fafnir traveled to drink from the river. When the dragon crawled over the pit, Sigurd thrust Gram upward into Fafnir's soft underbelly, the only place where his armored scales did not protect him. As Fafnir lay dying, he and Sigurd spoke. The dragon warned the hero about the cursed gold, told him that the treasure would bring his death. But Sigurd, young and confident, did not heed the warning. All men die eventually, he reasoned, and why should he not have the treasure while he lives? This is the tragic confidence of heroes, knowing the danger but believing themselves strong enough to overcome it. Regan then asked Sigurd to roast Fafnir's heart for him to eat, hoping to gain the dragon's wisdom and strength. As Sigurd cooked the heart, he touched it to see if it was done, burning his thumb. When he put his thumb in his mouth to ease the pain, Fafnir's blood touched his tongue, and suddenly Sigurd could understand the speech of birds. The birds were speaking about him, warning him that Regan intended to betray and kill him. They advised him to kill Regan first, eat the dragon's heart himself, and take all the treasure. Sigurd, understanding the treachery that awaited him, struck off Regan's head with Gram, ate Fafnir's heart, and claimed the cursed treasure as his own. Among the treasures was Andvaranaut, the cursed ring, and a magical helmet called the Helm of Awe, which struck terror into the hearts of enemies. Sigurd loaded all the gold onto his horse Grani, a descendant of Odin's eight-legged Sleipnir, and rode away, the greatest dragon slayer of his age, possessing wealth beyond measure, and bearing a curse he did not truly understand or fear. The birds told Sigurd of a woman sleeping on a mountain, surrounded by a ring of fire. This was Brynhild, a Valkyrie who had disobeyed Odin by granting victory to the wrong warrior in battle. As punishment, Odin pricked her with a sleep thorn and decreed she would sleep until a hero brave enough to cross the flames came to wake her. When she woke, she would be mortal and must marry. Sigurd rode to the flames without fear, his courage protecting him where others had turned back. He found Brynhilde in her armor and cut it from her body with Gram, freeing her from the enchanted sleep. When she woke, she and Sigurd pledged their love to each other, exchanging odes and rings. Sigurd gave her Andveranaut, binding them together with a cursed ring, though neither knew what doom this would bring. But Sigurd rode on, and in his travels he came to the court of King Juki, whose wife Grimhild was a sorceress. She saw in Sigurd a worthy match for her daughter Gudrun, and gave the hero a potion of forgetting. Sigurd, his memories of Brynhilde magically erased, fell in love with Gudrun and married her, becoming the son to Juki and brother to Juki's sons, Gunnar and Hogni. Grimhild then suggested that Gunnar should marry Brynhilde, knowing this would bind Sigurd's power to her family. But Brynhilde had vowed to marry only the man who could ride through the flames, and Gunnar's horse refused to approach the fire. Sigurd, ever loyal to his new brother, used magic to exchange shapes with Gunnar and rode through the flames a second time. He spent 3 nights with Brynhilde, but placed his sword Gram between them in the bed, honoring his oath to Gunnar by not touching the woman who had once been his own betrothed. Brynhilde, believing she was wedding the man who had braved the flames, married Gunnar and came to Juki's court. But when she saw Sigurd there, married to Gudrun, her heart broke with the realization that she had been deceived. The curse of the ring began to work its poison. Jealousy and resentment grew between the women. In a bitter argument by the river, Gudrun revealed that it was Sigurd who had ridden through the flames for Gunnar, not Gunnar himself. Brynhilde's rage and grief were terrible. She had been betrayed, her vows made meaningless by deception, her love stolen by magic and trickery. She goaded Gunnar and his brothers to kill Sigurd, claiming her honor demanded it, though the brothers loved Sigurd as their own, bound by oaths and shared glory. The demand of honor and Brynhilde's unrelenting fury eventually overcame their reluctance. They arranged for their younger brother Guttorm, who had not sworn oaths of brotherhood to Sigurd, to be the killer. They fed him wolf and snake meat, working him into a berserk fury, and sent him to Sigurd's bedchamber. Guttorm struck, while Sigurd slept beside Gudrun. But even dying, Sigurd grabbed Gram and threw it at his killer, cutting Guttorm in half. Sigurd died, the greatest hero of his age, brought down not in fair combat with monsters or enemies, but through treachery and the working of the curse he had ignored. Gudrun's grief was absolute, but Brynhilde's was greater still, for she understood too late that her rage had destroyed the only man she had ever loved. She had demanded his death, but found no satisfaction in it, only emptiness and the knowledge that she had destroyed her own happiness. Brynhilde declared that she would die and be burned on the same pyre as Sigurd. Despite attempts to dissuade her, she drove a sword into her own heart. The funeral pyre was built, and Sigurd was laid upon it with his sword and his treasures. Brynhilde was placed beside him, and as the flames consumed them both, it was said that they would be together in death as they should have been in life. But the curse did not end there. The treasure passed to Gudrun's brothers, and with it came continued strife. Gudrun was married again, against her will, to the mighty King Atli, who coveted the Volsung gold. Atli invited Gunnar and Hogni to his court, and then betrayed them, demanding they reveal where the treasure was hidden. The brothers refused, and both died under torture. Gunnar cast into a pit of serpents, where he played a harp with his toes until the snakes finally killed him. Gudrun took terrible vengeance on Atli. She killed their own sons and served their hearts to their father at a feast, then revealed what she had done before setting fire to his hall with him and all his men inside. The curse of Andvari's gold continued to work, destroying family after family, bringing death and betrayal wherever it went, until finally the treasure was cast in the Rhine River, lost a world but with its curse still active, waiting for someone new to find it and begin the cycle again. The Saga of the Volsungs teaches us about the nature of curses and fate, about how great deeds and great treasures come with great prices. Sigurd was the mightiest hero of his age, a dragon slayer, fearless and strong. Yet he fell not to any monster, but to the machinations of those close to him, to the curse woven into the gold he claimed, to the inexorable working of fate that even heroes cannot escape. The Saga reminds us in the Norse world, glory and tragedy are inseparable, that the brightest flames burn briefly, that even the greatest love can be twisted into the instrument of destruction. The sea held a special place in Norse life and Norse fears. For a seafaring people who depended on ships for trade, exploration, and raiding, the ocean was simultaneously a highway and a graveyard, a source of wealth and a realm of death. The Norse understood the sea as inherently dangerous, unpredictable, inhabited by creatures of terrible power that could destroy ships and devour crews with ease. These sea monsters represented the ocean's hostility made manifest, the embodiment of all the dangers that lurk beneath the waves. We have already encountered Jormungandr, the world serpent who encircles Midgard, the greatest of all sea monsters, and one whose fate is tied to the ending of the world itself. But Jormungandr is not alone in the ocean. The depths are filled with other creatures, smaller than the world serpent perhaps, but still formidable, still deadly, still capable of pulling ships down into the darkness for which there is no return. The Halfguffa, or sea mist, is one of the most feared sea monsters in Norse tradition. It is described as being so massive that sailors might mistake it for an island, drawing near what they think is land only to discover too late that they are approaching a living creature. The Halfguffa would remain still on the surface, mouth open, attracting fish and other sea life into its maw through some unknown means, perhaps through the smell of its breath, perhaps through some form of lure or attraction. When enough prey had gathered, or when a ship came too close, the mouth would snap shut and the creature would dive, taking everything with it into the depths. This monster represents one of the particular terrors of deep ocean sailing. The inability to trust what one sees, the possibility that any apparent refuge or landmark might be a trap, the reality that the sea contains things so large that human scale becomes meaningless. A creature that could be mistaken for an island suggests something of unimaginable size, something so vast that the human mind struggles to comprehend it as a living being. The Lingback or Heatherback is described similarly to the Halfguffa, sometimes as the same creature or a related type. This sea monster would lie on the surface, so still and for so long that sand and seaweed would accumulate on its back, creating the appearance of a small island. Sailors desperate for land might pull their ships up onto this island, might even try to light fires for cooking or warmth. The heat of the fire would wake the creature, which would then dive, taking the ship and crew with it, or at least stranding them far from any true land. These stories served as warnings to sailors about the dangers of approaching anything in the open ocean too carelessly, about the importance of being cautious even when salvation seems near, about the reality that the sea is fundamentally alien territory where normal rules do not apply, and where danger can wear the appearance of safety. They encode practical wisdom. Be wary of what floats. Test before trusting. Maintain vigilance even when rest seems possible. The Kraken, though the name itself is more common in later Scandinavian folklore, represents a type of massive cephalopod that appears in Norse sea monster accounts. These creatures, described as having many arms or tentacles, could reach up in the depths to wrap around ships, pulling them under or crushing them with irresistible strength. The size attributed to these creatures varies. Some stories describe them as merely large squids or octopi, dangerous but not impossibly so, while others portray them as beings of such magnitude that a single tentacle could wrap around an entire longship. The existence of actual giant squid, unknown to modern science until relatively recently, suggests that at least some sea monster stories were based on real encounters with creatures that were indeed monstrous by any reasonable standard. A crew that witnessed a giant squid would have seen something that matched many of the descriptions in monster lore: massive size, many tentacles, the ability to drag prey underwater, sudden appearance from the depths. The embellishment of these encounters and retelling would have created stories that were partly truth and partly exaggeration, but the core experience, that the ocean contains vast and dangerous creatures, was entirely accurate. The sea serpents of Norse tradition, distinct from Jormungand, but similar in basic form, appear throughout the folklore and sagas. These creatures are described as being long and sinuous, capable of raising their heads high above the water, sometimes described as having manes or fins that run along their backs. They could overturn ships by swimming beneath them and rising suddenly, could attack sailors with tooth and coil, could create whirlpools or waves at endangered vessels. Some were said to be as long as several ships placed end to end, others even larger. These sea serpents were not necessarily always aggressive. Some stories describe them as being territorial, attacking only those who intruded into their domains or who provoked them. Others suggest they were merely large sea creatures going about their business, dangerous not from malice, but simply from their size and power. A ship in the wrong place at the wrong time might be destroyed not through any intention, but simply as collateral damage of the creature's movement. The Midgard serpent's offspring or relatives were sometimes blamed for particularly dangerous stretches of water. A region known for frequent shipwrecks might be said to be inhabited by one of Jormungandr's children, a serpent that had inherited its parents' hostility to humanity. These local sea monsters gave specific identity to general danger, allowed sailors to conceptualize and discuss threats, perhaps to feel some small measure of control through knowing what they faced even if they could not defeat it. Draugr could also haunt the sea, particularly those who had died at sea and whose bodies were never properly buried. These sea Draugr would attack ships, try and drag sailors overboard to join them in death, or would appear as omens warning that a voyage was doomed. A crew that saw one of their dead companions standing on the ship or swimming alongside it knew they faced disaster. The dead were trying to claim the living, to bring them down into the cold depths where proper rest was impossible and only the restless dead endured. The Margig or sea giantess represents another type of sea monster, humanoid in basic form but of enormous size, dwelling in the ocean, occasionally rising to threaten ships. These beings were described as being ugly and terrible, with features that were recognizably human-like but distorted, oversized, grotesque. They might grab at ships, might call out to sailors in voices that could drive men mad, might simply be cited as omens of coming storms or disaster. Some sea monsters were more ambiguous in their relationship to humans. The mermen and mermaids of Norse tradition could be helpful or harmful, warning sailors of coming dangers or luring them to their deaths. These beings were neither fully human nor fully monster, but something in between, capable of communication, sometimes even a relationship with humans, but ultimately belonging to the sea rather than the land, following their own laws and purposes rather than caring about human concerns. Selkies, creatures that could take the form of seals in the water and humans on land, appear in Norse folklore, particularly in stories from the northern islands. These beings were generally not hostile, but could be tragic figures. Selkie women who were trapped on land when their sealskins were stolen. Selkie men who fell in love with human women only to be drawn back to the sea. Relationships between humans and Selkies that were beautiful but doomed by the fundamental incompatibility of land and sea. The horse of the sea, the Bakis or Enwaikar, was a shape-shifting creature that could appear as a beautiful horse near water, tempting people, particularly children, to mount it. Once someone climbed onto the water horse back, they would find themselves unable to dismount, and the creature would plunge into the water, drowning its victim. This creature represents a danger of the liminal spaces where land meets water, the places where one element transitions to another and where normal safety does not apply. Whirlpools were sometimes attributed to sea monsters, particularly to creatures that created them through their movements or through their breathing. The maelstrom, the great whirlpool off the coast of Norway, was said to be caused by a sea monster or by some mechanism in the ocean floor that pulled water down into the underworld. Ships caught in such whirlpools had no escape. They would be pulled down into the spiral, drawn deeper and deeper until they were crushed or drowned, lost forever in the ocean's depths. The sea itself was sometimes personified as Aegir, a being who could be counted among the gods or the giants, or as something unique and separate. Aegir's wife Ron used a net to catch sailors who fell overboard, dragging them down to her halls beneath the waves. Those who drowned at sea were said to go to Ron's realm, and a drowning man who saw gold would know he was going to Ron, gold being the light of her hall, the last thing drowning men would see. Sailors sometimes carried gold to ensure they would be well received if they drowned, turning what would be a terrifying fate into something at least bearable. The children of Aegir and Ron were the waves themselves, 9 daughters whose names reflected different aspects of the sea. Himingliva, sky clear; Dufa, the pitching one; Blughadda, bloody hair, perhaps red sea foam, and others. These wave maidens were both beautiful and deadly, could be gentle or violent, represented the sea's fundamental duality as both provider and destroyer. Sailors would invoke them, would try to appease them with words and offerings, would hope for their mercy even while fearing their power. The Norse understanding of sea monsters reflects the reality of their relationship with the ocean. The sea was necessary. It connected communities, enabled trade, allowed for expansion and exploration. But it was also deadly, claiming lives regularly, offering no guarantee of safe passage, hiding dangers that could emerge without warning. Sea monsters gave form to these dangers, made them concrete and specific, allowed people to think about and discuss what threatened them even if they could not ultimately control or prevent it. Stories of sea monsters also serve practical purposes. They warned sailors about dangerous waters, about behaviors that increased risk, about the importance of vigilance and proper seamanship. They provided explanations for disasters. When a ship was lost with all hands, when sailors disappeared without trace, when wrecks were found but causes were unclear. The sea monster provided an answer that satisfied the need to understand while acknowledging the ocean's fundamental mystery and danger. The greatest sea monsters, the half-gufa, the kraken, the unnamed serpents of tremendous size, represented the ultimate inadequacy of human power in the face of nature's might. No matter how skilled the sailor, how well-built the ship, how favorable the weather, there were things in the ocean that could destroy everything with ease. This enforced a necessary humility, a recognition that human control had limits, that there were domains where humanity was not master, but merely visitor, tolerated only as long as the true powers of that realm allowed. As we conclude our journey through the creatures and spirits of Norse mythology, from the tragic heroes who faced them to the vast monsters that embody natural forces, we understand that the Norse cosmos was densely populated with beings of every kind. Some were helpful, some harmful. Most were ambiguous, capable of either depending on circumstances, on how they were treated, on the workings of fate. To live in this world is to live among countless presences, seen and unseen, to navigate relationships not just with other humans, but with the spirits of land and sea, with the followers of individual fate, with the restless dead and the denizens of the deep. It was a world that was never empty, never simple, never fully knowable, and the stories of its inhabitants revealed people who understood that they were part of something vast and strange, that mysteries existed beyond human comprehension, and that wisdom lay in acknowledging this reality rather than pretending to master what could not be mastered. Not all who died depart peacefully to Helheim, or the halls of the honored dead. Some remain, trapped between life and death, their bodies animated by malevolent will, their spirits unable or unwilling to accept the finality of death. These are the Draugr, the undead, among the most feared creatures in Norse folklore. They are not spirits or ghosts in the ethereal sense, but physical bodies that continue to move and act after death, possessed by something dark and hungry, dangerous to the living in ways both physical and spiritual. The word Draugr is related to dreams and ghosts, but these beings are far more substantial than mere phantoms. A Draugr has weight and solidity. can manipulate physical objects, can fight with terrible strength. They dwell in their burial mounds, jealously guarding whatever treasures were interred with them, emerging to attack those who disturb their rest or who wander too close to their domains. Some Draugr remain in or near their former homes, haunting the places they knew in life, unable to leave, unwilling to rest. The creation of a Draugr typically involves some failure in the proper ordering of death, a person who dies with great bitterness or unfinished business, who was buried improperly, who had been particularly greedy or cruel in life. These are most likely to become Draugr. The transition from life to death requires proper rituals, proper burial, proper acceptance of mortality. When these conditions are not met, when the ties binding a person to life are not properly severed, the possibility of becoming Draugr arises. Greed is particularly associated with Draugr creation. Those who were excessively attached to their possessions in life, who cannot bear to leave their wealth behind, may cling to existence as Draugr to continue guarding their hoards. This is why burial mounds containing rich grave goods are particularly dangerous. The dead within may be watching, waiting, ready to destroy anyone who attempts to rob them. The Draugr does not need or use his treasure, cannot spend or enjoy it, but cannot allow others to take it either. The appearance of Draugr is universally described as horrifying. They have the pallor of death, with skin that has taken on a corpse-like hue, deathly pale or tinged with blue or green. Their bodies are often swollen, bloated with some dark power that animates them, giving them unnatural size and strength. Their faces are twisted with malice and hatred, their eyes gleaming with an unnatural light. Some Draugr show signs of decay, with rotting flesh and exposed bone, while others appear more intact but fundamentally wrong, uncanny, clearly not alive despite their animation. Draugr possess strength far beyond what they had in life. Stories tell of Draugr who could break down doors, lift horses, crush men to death with their bare hands. This supernatural strength makes them formidable opponents in physical combat. They are difficult to kill because they're already dead. Ordinary wounds that would stop a living person have little effect on them. Dismembering them may only provide temporary relief, as the pieces can rejoin or continue to move independently. But the Draugr's threat goes beyond mere physical danger. They can bring madness to those who see them, can curse those who approach their mounds, can spread disease and misfortune throughout a region. A Draugr active in an area might cause crops to fail, livestock to sicken, people to fall ill with mysterious ailments. The presence of the undead is a corruption, a wrongness that affects everything nearby, a violation of natural order that spreads like a disease. Some Draugr possess magical abilities beyond what they had in life. They might be able to enter people's dreams, sending nightmares and visions that drive victims to madness or death. They might be able to change size, growing huge to inspire terror, or shrinking small to slip through cracks and openings. They might be able to control the weather around their burial mounds, summoning fog or darkness to confuse travelers and lure them to their doom. They might be able to shapeshift, taking the forms of animals or appearing as they did in life to deceive those who knew them. Certain Draugr are more powerful and dangerous than others. Those who were great warriors or leaders in life often retained something of their skill and cunning as undead, making them particularly formidable opponents. There are stories of Draugr who lead bands of lesser undead, who organize them for particular purposes, who plan and scheme rather than simply lashing out in mindless rage. These intelligent Draugr are the most dangerous, for they combine physical power with strategic thinking and magical abilities. The most famous Draugr in Norse literature is perhaps Glamr from Grettir's Saga. Glamr was a shepherd who was killed by an unnamed supernatural creature while watching his flock. He rose as a Draugr and proceeded to kill or drive away anyone who attempted to take over his former position. The farmstead where he had worked fell into ruin, as no one could survive there with Glamr haunting it. When the hero Grettir finally confronted Glamour, the Draugr was described as being enormously strong and terrifying to behold. Grettir managed to defeat Glamour in a fierce wrestling match, dragging the Draugr outside the farmhouse. A significant act, as Draugr were often more powerful within enclosed spaces. But even in defeat, Glamour cursed Grettir, laying a curse of fear and misfortune upon him that would plague the hero for the rest of his life. This demonstrates that even a defeated Draugr can be dangerous, that their malice extends beyond physical threat, that they can poison a person's fate even in their destruction. Dealing with Draugr requires specific knowledge and courage. Simply killing them is often insufficient, as they are already dead. They must be properly destroyed in ways that prevent their resurrection. This typically involves decapitation and placing the head at the feet or buttocks, preventing the Draugr from reuniting its parts. The body might then be burned, the ashes scattered or buried in unconsecrated ground, or weighted down with stones. Some stories describe driving wooden stakes through the Draugr's chest or cutting off their toes to prevent them from walking. The proper burial of a person to prevent them from becoming Draugr is also important preventative knowledge. The eyes should be closed, symbolizing acceptance of death and preventing the dead from watching the living. Heavy stones might be placed on the chest to keep the body in the grave. The big toe might be tied to prevent walking. Christian burial practices later included prayers and holy water, but the underlying concern remained the same, ensuring that the dead stayed dead, that they accepted their state and did not attempt to return. Some individuals were known to be particularly at risk of becoming Draugr and were treated accordingly. Those who died violently with vengeance on their minds, those who had sworn great oaths they could not fulfill in life, those who were particularly wicked or cruel. These might receive special burial practices designed to keep them from rising. In extreme cases, a person known to be at high risk might be buried far from any settlement, in a place where they could do little harm even if they did rise. The Draugr reflect Norse anxieties about death and the dead. Death should be final, should be accepted, should lead to proper rest in whatever afterlife is appropriate. When this natural order is violated, when the dead do not remain dead, it creates profound unease. The Draugr represents a failure of death to bring closure, the possibility that hatred and greed and unfinished business can persist beyond the grave, the fear that what is buried might not stay buried. But the Draugr also serves a moral function in the stories. Those who become Draugr are typically those who lived selfishly, who were too attached to material possessions, who could not accept immortality, who harmed others without remorse. The fate of becoming Draugr is therefore both punishment and warning. It shows what happens to those who live in certain ways, who hold certain values, who cannot let go of the world even when their time in it is ended. There is something pitiful about the Draugr, as well as terrifying. They are trapped, unable to move on, condemned to an existence that is neither truly alive nor properly dead. They guard treasures they cannot use, dwell in mounds they cannot leave, lash out at the living from envy or rage or simple inability to do anything else. They are prisoners of their own greed, their own bitterness, their own refusal to accept what cannot be changed. In this sense, the Draugr is a tragedy as well as a horror. The Draugr remind us that in the Norse worldview, proper death requires proper life. How one lives determines not just how one dies, but what happens after death. Greed, cruelty, bitterness. These create conditions that can lead to the worst possible afterlife. Not torment in some distant hell, but the living death of the Draugr, trapped in a decaying body, consumed by impossible hungers, forever denied the rest that should come with death. It is a fate to be feared and avoided through right living, through proper death rituals, through acceptance of mortality, and the letting go of what cannot be taken into death. As we prepare to turn from the land-bound undead to the creatures of the sea, we carry with us this understanding that death in Norse belief was complex, that the boundary between life and death could be violated, that the dead could be dangerous if not properly honored and laid to rest. The Draugr stand as guardians of that boundary in their own twisted way. By being so terrible, so clearly wrong, they reinforce the importance of dying properly, of accepting death, of maintaining the natural order that keeps the living and the dead in their separate realms. Where the Landvaettir are spirits bound to places, the Fylgja are spirits bound to people, personal followers, guardian spirits, external manifestations of an individual's fate, luck, or essential nature. The concept of the Fylgja is complex and multifaceted, representing one of the most intimate and personal aspects of Norse spiritual belief. To understand the Fylgja is to understand that in Norse thought, a person was not a single, unified entity but a composite of multiple aspects, some of which could exist independently or semi-independently. The word Fylgja is related to the verb to follow, and this captures something essential about these beings. They follow their person throughout life, accompanying them unseen, connected to their fate and fortune. A Fylgja is not chosen or summoned, but is simply part of who a person is, born with them or attached to them in early life, remaining until death and sometimes beyond. To see one's own Fylgja was often considered an omen of impending death, a sign that the connection between spirit and body was loosening, that the follower was preparing to depart. Fylgja could appear in various forms, most commonly as animals. The type of animal reflected something about the person's character, nature, or fate. A warrior might have a bear or wolf as a Fylgja, representing strength and ferocity. A wise woman might have an owl or raven, representing knowledge and connection to the hidden. A cunning trader might have a fox, representing cleverness and adaptability. These animal forms were not arbitrary, but deeply meaningful, revealing something true about the person's essential nature. The appearance of a person's Fylgja to others could be significant. If someone saw another person's Fylgja before meeting the person themselves, it served as advance warning of that person's character and likely behavior. A farmer who saw a wolf Fylgja approaching his farm would prepare for the arrival of a dangerous warrior. A household that glimpsed a raven Fylgja might ready themselves for a visit from someone with news or prophecy. The Fylgja, in appearing ahead of the person, provided information and allowed for preparation. But Fylgja were more than just external markers of internal character. They were active participants in a person's life, connected to their luck and success. A strong Fylgja brought good fortune, protection from harm, success in endeavors. A weak or damaged Fylgja meant vulnerability, bad luck, likely failure. Certain individuals, particularly those skilled in magic or with strong personal power, could actively work with their Fylgja, sending them out to gather information, to influence events, even to fight spiritual battles on their behalf. There are stories of magical duels where practitioners sent their Fylgja to battle each other in animal form. These spirit combats were as real and as dangerous as physical fights, and the winner of the spiritual battle often prevailed in the material world as well. A person whose Fylgja was defeated in such combat might sicken, weaken, even die, their spiritual protection shattered, their luck broken. These battles were invisible to ordinary sight, but could be witnessed by those with the appropriate magical vision. Fylgja could also be inherited, passed down through families. A powerful ancestor's Fylgja might attach itself to a descendant, particularly one who showed similar characteristics or aptitudes. This created lines of spiritual as well as physical inheritance, with certain families known to have particularly strong or distinctive Fylgja. A family might be known as bear people or raven folk based on the typical form their Fylgja took, and this was understood as more than mere nickname. It reflected a genuine spiritual reality about that lineage. Women's Fylgja were sometimes described as appearing in human form, as beautiful women in white or silver, rather than as animals. These female Fylgja, called kin Fylgja, were specifically associated with families and lineages, passing from generation to generation, particularly through the female line. They were protectors of the family, guardians of the bloodline, ensuring continuity and prosperity for their descendants. To see such a Fylgja was to receive a visit from a family's guardian spirit, often with important messages or warnings about the family's fate. The concept of the Fylgja connects closely with the Norse understanding of the self as composite rather than unitary. A person consisted of multiple parts: body, breath, soul, mind, soul, shadow, and these various spiritual aspects, including the Fylgja. These parts could, under certain circumstances, separate from each other. In sleep, parts of the self could journey while the body remained behind. In trance or magical working, the practitioner might send their Fylgja forth while remaining physically present. At death, these various aspects separated permanently, each going to its own destination or state. This multiplicity of self explains certain Norse beliefs that might otherwise seem contradictory. How could a person be in one place while their Fylgja appeared elsewhere? Because the Fylgja was genuinely a separate entity, though bound to and dependent on the person. How could someone see their own Fylgja? Because under extreme circumstances, great danger, approaching death, powerful magical working, the separation between the aspects of self could become visible even to the person themselves. The relationship between a person and their Fylgja was not entirely passive. While the Fylgja reflected one's nature, one's actions and character could also affect the Fylgja. Living honorably, acting courageously, maintaining one's reputation. All of these strengthened the Fylgja, made it more powerful, more effective in its protective role. Conversely, shameful actions, cowardice, broken oaths, these weakened the Fylgja, diminished its power, left the person more vulnerable to misfortune and harm. This created a spiritual dimension to the concept of honor that went beyond mere social reputation. To damage one's honor was not just to lose standing in the community, but to literally weaken one's spiritual protection, to diminish the Fylgja that helped ensure success and survival. This is why the Norse were so concerned with maintaining honor, why insults and accusations were taken so seriously, why shame could literally be deadly. It was understood that one's spiritual state, one's luck, one's protection were all bound up with one's standing and character. Certain actions were understood to be attacks not on the physical person, but on their Fylgja. Curses and magical attacks often targeted the Fylgja rather than the body directly. A curse that weakened or drove away a person's Fylgja would leave them vulnerable, unlucky, prone to accidents and illness, even if no direct physical harm had been done. Conversely, blessings and protective magic often worked by strengthening the Fylgja, by reinforcing the spiritual aspect of a person that helped ensure their well-being. The death of the Fylgja before the person's physical death was the worst possible omen. There are stories of warriors who saw their Fylgja killed in battle, and who knew immediately that their own deaths were imminent and inevitable. The Fylgja's destruction meant that the person's luck was exhausted, their fate sealed, their spiritual protection shattered beyond repair. Such warriors often chose to fight all the harder, knowing they would not survive but determined to die well, to maintain honor even as their doom approached. After death, the fate of the Fylgja was uncertain. Some sources suggest that it dissipated, having fulfilled its purpose. Others suggest that it might linger, particularly around the person's burial place, or might pass to a descendant, particularly one named after the deceased. Still others suggest that the Fylgja might accompany the person's other spiritual aspects to whatever afterlife awaited them. The ambiguity itself is revealing. The Norse were more concerned with a practical understanding of how Fylgja worked in life than with creating a consistent theology about their ultimate fate. The Fylgja represents a profound understanding that personal fate and fortune are not entirely random, but are influenced by one's character, actions, and spiritual state. It provides a framework for understanding luck not as mere chance, but as something that can be strengthened or weakened, that responds to how one lives, that has its own quasi-independent existence while remaining intimately connected to the person. To have a strong Fylgja was to be fortunate, protected, likely to succeed. To have a weak or absent Fylgja was to be vulnerable, unlucky, likely to fail. This belief in Fylgja also reinforced community values and social cohesion. Since one's Fylgja was affected by one's reputation and honor, and since Fylgja could be visible to others with the sight, there was a spiritual dimension to social standing. A person known to have a powerful Fylgja would be respected, feared, sought as an ally. A person whose Fylgja was known to be weak would be avoided, not necessarily out of cruelty, but out of practical concern. To associate closely with someone whose luck was bad might bring that bad luck to oneself. The Fylgja also provided a way of thinking about inherited traits and family resemblances that went beyond mere physical characteristics. When people noticed that a child showed the same strengths or weaknesses as an ancestor, the same aptitudes or inclinations, they might understand this as a working of inherited Fylgja, as spiritual legacy expressing itself through generations. This gave meaning to family continuity, to the importance of ancestors, to the sense that the past lived on not just in memory, but in active spiritual reality. In modern terms, we might understand the Fylgja as a way of conceptualizing aspects of personality, of luck and fortune, of the intangible qualities that make some people seem blessed with success, while others struggle despite equal effort. The Norse gave this a concrete form, understood it as an external entity that could be seen, affected, strengthened, or weakened, whether understood literally or metaphorically. The concept of the Fylgja provided a sophisticated framework for thinking about personal fortune, spiritual state, and the complex relationship between character, fate, and success in life. As we continue our exploration of the spirits and beings that populate the Norse cosmos, we move from the external, land spirits and elves, to the deeply personal, the Fylgja that accompanies each individual. Yet we will see that there are still more categories of beings, more layers of reality, more ways that the Norse understood the world to be filled with consciousness and agency beyond the merely human or divine. The Fylgja is part of a rich and complex spiritual ecology, one piece of the intricate web of relationships between the visible and invisible, the material and the spiritual, the mortal and the eternal. While the elves occupy a broad category of supernatural beings spread across the Norse cosmos, the Landvaettir are more specific, more localized, more intimately connected to particular places. These are the land spirits, the whites of the earth, the guardian beings that inhabit specific locations, mountains, valleys, rocks, waterfalls, islands, and stretches of coastline. They are not visitors to these places, but are intrinsic to them, as much a part of the location as the soil and stone themselves. The Landvaettir are ancient, predating human settlement, existing since the land itself was formed. They are neither gods nor elves, though they share characteristics with both. They are bound to their specific locations, unable or unwilling to leave, their existence intertwined with the place they guard. To understand the Landvaettir is to understand that in the Norse worldview, land is not inert matter but living presence, that every place has its own spirit, its own consciousness, its own will that must be acknowledged and respected. The appearance of Landvaettir varies widely, for they often take forms that reflect their environments. A mountain spirit might appear as a giant figure of stone, or as a great bear, or as an old man with a long beard that resembles lichen and moss. A waterfall spirit might appear as a woman whose hair streams like falling water, or as a salmon of unusual size, or as mist that takes vaguely humanoid shape. A forest spirit might manifest as a massive stag, as a tree that moves and speaks, as a presence felt rather than seen. The Landvaettir are shapeshifters by nature, appearing in whatever form suits their purpose or matches their domain. These spirits are fiercely protective of their territories. They do not welcome intrusion lightly, and they respond with hostility to those who damage or despoil the places they guard. A Landvaettir might tolerate human presence if humans show proper respect, making offerings, speaking words of acknowledgement, moving through the land gently without leaving scars. But those who come with axes to clear-cut forests, with plows to break virgin ground, with mines to hollow out mountains, with no thought for the spirits who dwell there, these will face the wrath of the Landvaettir. That wrath can take many forms. Crops might fail in fields torn from a Landvaett's domain. Livestock might sicken and die. Buildings might collapse or burn. People might be plagued by nightmares, by illnesses that have no natural cause, by accidents that seem too frequent to be coincidence. The Landvaettir do not always act directly, but can make a place unlucky, can turn the subtle forces of fate against those who have offended them, can make life in their territories so difficult that humans eventually abandon it. Yet the Landvaettir are not inherently hostile to humans. They can be powerful allies and protectors for those who live in harmony with the land, who show proper respect, who understand that they are guests in a place that belongs first to the spirits. A farmer who honors the Landvaettir of his fields might find that his crops grow better than his neighbors, that his livestock thrives, that his family prospers. A sailor who acknowledges the Landvaettir of the coastline might find safe harbors in storms, might be warned of danger by signs and portents, might receive protection on dangerous voyages. The key to maintaining good relationships with the Landvaettir lies in acknowledgement and offering before settling a new piece of land. Before beginning any major work that would change the landscape, the wise would make offerings to the spirits of that place. Food, drink, valuable objects, even just words of respect and requests for permission. These offerings serve multiple purposes. They acknowledge the Landvaettir's existence and rights. They ask for blessing on the work to be done. They establish a relationship of mutual respect rather than conquest and exploitation. There is a famous story from the settlement of Iceland that demonstrates the importance of the Landvaettir. When King Harald Bluetooth of Denmark wanted to know about Iceland, possibly plan an invasion, he sent a wizard in the form of a whale to spy on the land. As the whale wizard approached different parts of Iceland's coast, he was met by the Landvaettir of those regions. A dragon in the east, a giant bull in the west, a huge bird in the north, and rock giants in the south. These spirits, protecting their land and the humans who had settled there respectfully, drove the whale wizard away, and the king abandoned his plans of invasion. This story reveals much about the Landvaettir. They are powerful enough to intimidate even royal wizards and deter foreign kings. They are diverse, each region having its own type of guardian spirit. And crucially, they protect the humans who live on their land, not out of any abstract principle, but because those humans have established proper relationships with them, because they have honored the spirits and earned their protection in return. The Landvaettir could also be consulted for wisdom and advice. Those with the sight, those skilled in seer magic or other forms of divination, could sometimes communicate with the spirits of the land, asking for guidance, for warnings about future events, for help in making important decisions. The Landvaettir, being ancient and bound to their places, had witnessed much, remembered long histories, understood patterns that shorter-lived beings might miss. Their counsel was valuable to those who knew how to seek it properly. Individual Landvaettir might have names, particularly those associated with prominent features of the landscape. A mountain might have a named guardian, a famous waterfall its own specific spirit, an island its particular wight. These named spirits might be honored for generations, with families passing down stories about them, traditions for appeasing them, warnings about behaviors that offended them. The relationship with a specific Landvaett could become part of a community's identity, part of what made their place unique and special. When Christianity came to Scandinavia, the Landvaettir presented a particular challenge for the new religion. Unlike the gods, who could be reinterpreted as demons or simply denied, the Landvaettir were too immediate, too localized, too connected to daily survival to be easily dismissed. People might agree to stop worshiping the Aesir, but they were reluctant to stop honoring the spirits of their own land, the beings they had relationships with, the guardians who protected their farms and families. This led to a long period of syncretism, where Christian practices and the honoring of Landvaettir coexisted. People might pray to Christian saints while also leaving offerings for the Landvaettir. They might attend church on Sunday while still acknowledging the spirits on their land throughout the week. The Landvaettir were too practical, too directly relevant to daily life, to be easily abandoned for an abstract theology that offered no immediate protection for crops and livestock. Even in later times, long after official conversion, beliefs about Landvaettir persisted in folklore and practice. Farmers would leave corners of their fields unplowed as homes for spirits. Specific rocks or trees would be considered sacred, not to be moved or cut. When building new structures, care would be taken to avoid certain locations where the Landvaettir were known to dwell. These practices continued not out of explicit religious belief, but out of practical wisdom passed down through generations. Offending the Landvaettir led to misfortune. Honoring them led to prosperity. And this was knowledge that transcended any particular theological framework. The Landvaettir also served an important ecological function, though this was not how the Norse would have understood it. By demanding respect for the land, by punishing those who despoiled or overexploited their territories, by encouraging sustainable relationships with nature, the Landvaettir helped maintain the health of ecosystems. A farmer who feared offending the Landvaettir would be more careful about how much forest he cleared, how he managed the soil, how he treated the water sources on his land. The spirits, in their way, enforced a kind of environmental stewardship. This practical benefit suggests that the Landvaettir, whether understood as literal spirits or as cultural mechanisms for encoding ecological wisdom, serve an important function in Norse society. They provided a framework for thinking about humanity's relationship with the land that emphasized respect, reciprocity, and restraint rather than unlimited exploitation. They taught that the land had its own rights, its own consciousness, its own capacity to respond to how it was treated. The Landvaettir remind us that in the Norse worldview, humans were not the sole owners or rulers of the land, but participants in a complex web of relationships with other beings, some visible, many invisible. Every rock might house a spirit. Every stream have its guardian. Every mountain its ancient watcher. To move through the world was to move through territories that belonged to others, to be constantly aware that one was being watched, being judged, being responded to based on respect or disrespect shown. This creates a very different relationship with nature than one based purely on ownership and use rights. The land is not property to be exploited, but community to be honored. Not resource to be extracted, but relationship to be maintained. The Landvaettir are the other parties in these relationships, the beings with whom humans must negotiate, whose rights must be acknowledged, whose power must be respected. They are the spirits that make the land alive, that give it personality and agency, that transform geography into living, conscious presence. As we continue to explore the spirits and beings that populate the Norse cosmos, we carry forward this understanding that the world is densely inhabited, that consciousness exists in many forms, that humans share existence with countless other beings whose natures and purposes we can only partially understand. The Landvaettir are perhaps the most immediately relevant of these beings, for they are tied to the very ground we walk on, the places we call home, the land we depend on for survival. To ignore them, to disrespect them, was to court disaster. To honor them, to maintain proper relationships with them, was essential wisdom for living well in the Norse world. We have spoken of the light elves of Alfheim, those radiant beings who dwell in the upper branches of Yggdrasil, fairer than the sun to look upon, associated with beauty, blessing, and the gentler aspects of magic. But the elves of Norse tradition are more diverse and complex than this single category suggests. They exist in multiple forms, occupying different realms, serving different functions, embodying different aspects of the supernatural that exists alongside but separate from the gods and giants. The division between light elves and dark elves is the most fundamental, but even this is not as simple as it first appears. The light elves, or Josafar, are beings of ethereal beauty and beneficent power. They are associated with light, growth, fertility, and blessing. They live in Alfheim under Freyr's lordship, and they represent the positive, life-affirming aspects of nature's magic. When humans speak of elvish blessings, of crops that grow better in certain fields, of illnesses that heal mysteriously, of good fortune that seems to follow certain families. They are speaking of the influence of the Light Elves. The Light Elves are not gods, but they are closer to the divine than to the mortal. They do not age as humans do not sicken or die from natural causes, though they can be killed. They possess magical abilities that surpass those of most mortals. They can encourage growth, heal wounds, bring good fortune, see things hidden from ordinary sight. They are skilled in all the arts, creating objects of surpassing beauty, composing poetry and music that can move even the hardest heart, dancing with a grace that seems to defy the laws of nature. But the Light Elves are also particular about respect and proper behavior. They reward courtesy and punish rudeness. They notice when humans honor them with small offerings or kind words, and they notice when humans mock them or desecrate places sacred to them. A farmer who leaves out a bowl of milk for the elves, who speaks well to hidden folk, who treats the land gently, may find that his crops flourish, his livestock thrives, his family prospers. But one who speaks ill of the elves, who cuts down a tree sacred to them, who builds where he should not, may find himself plagued by small misfortunes that accumulate into genuine hardship. The Dark Elves, the Dalkalfar or Svartalfar, are more ambiguous figures. In some sources, they seem to be identical with the dwarves, those master craftsmen who dwell beneath mountains and cannot abide sunlight. In other sources, they appear to be a separate race, related to but distinct from dwarves, occupying their own niche in the cosmic order. The Dark Elves dwell in Svartalfheim, in caverns and underground halls, in the darkness beneath the earth, where the Light Elves represent the beneficial aspect of nature. The Dark Elves represent the hidden, the underground, the things that dwell in darkness. They are not necessarily evil, but they are more dangerous than their light cousins, less predictable, less inclined to help humans. They are associated with the earth in its more threatening aspects, with caves that collapse, with mines that flood, with seams or that peter out just when they seem most promising. They know the secrets of metals and stones, understand the hidden properties of the earth, can work magic that affects the very ground beneath one's feet. Dark Elves are skilled in a different kind of magic than the Light Elves practice. Where Light Elves work with growth and blessing, Dark Elves work with binding and transformation, with the magic of earth and stone, with enchantments that last for ages because they are woven into permanent materials rather than living things. A Dark Elf's curse might be carved in stone, might be worked into the very foundation of a building, might persist long after the elf who placed it has been forgotten. Encounters with Dark Elves are generally less pleasant than encounters with Light Elves. They are more likely to trick travelers, to lead them astray in underground passages, to demand high prices for any assistance they provide. They are jealous of their territory and their knowledge, quick to take offense, slow to forgive, yet they can be bargained with, and they do honor their agreements, if those agreements are worded carefully and fulfilled exactly. Many of the great treasures of gods and heroes were created by Dark Elves or dwarves, which suggests that despite their difficult nature, they can be valuable allies if properly approached. Beyond these two main categories, there are other types of elves mentioned in the sources and folklore. There are wood elves, who dwell in deep forests, who are neither as radiant as the Light Elves nor as dark as the underground folk. These elves are associated with trees and wild game, with the deep woods where sunlight filters through leaves in dappled patterns, with places where human settlements end and true wilderness begins. Wood elves are elusive, rarely showing themselves to humans, preferring to remain hidden among the trees they protect. They are dangerous to those who harm the forest, woodcutters who take more than they need, hunters who kill for sport rather than sustenance, travelers who leave trails of destruction behind them. But they can also be helpful to those who move through their territory with respect, who take only what is necessary, who understand that the forest is not merely a resource to be exploited, but a living realm with its own inhabitants and its own rights. There are stories of hunters who have been led astray by wood elves, wandering in circles until they collapse from exhaustion, only to wake at the forest edge with no memory of how they got there. There are tales of those who have been helped by wood elves, a lost child guided home, a wounded traveler finding a path when none was visible, a hunter given a shot at game that seems almost to present itself. The wood elves are neither consistently helpful nor consistently harmful, but they are always present in the deep forest, always watching, always aware of who passes through their domain. Then there are the water elves, associated with rivers, lakes, and streams. These beings are sometimes described as beautiful beyond mortal reckoning, appearing on the banks of waterways, singing songs that can enchant listeners, sometimes luring the unwary into the water to drown. But they can also be protective of those who respect their waters, who do not pollute or overfish draw too much, who acknowledge the spirit of the water before crossing or sailing upon it. Water elves are mercurial, changing like the water itself, calm and serene one moment, turbulent and dangerous the next. They have been known to fall in love with mortals, and these relationships rarely end well, for the water elf eventually returns to the water, unable to remain on land permanently, leaving a human lover to grieve. Children born of such unions are said to be strange and beautiful, neither fully human nor fully elvish, often possessing unusual abilities related to water and weather. There are also the mountain elves, dwelling in the high peaks, associated with snow and ice and the thin air of altitude. These elves are rare and seldom seen, appearing only to those who venture into the highest, most remote regions. They are said to be neither friendly nor hostile, but simply indifferent, concerned with their own affairs in the high places, occasionally helping or harming humans almost by accident, as a side effect of whatever they were actually doing. The relationship between elves and the dead is another complex aspect of elvish nature. In some sources, there are suggestions that the honored dead might become like elves, that there is some connection between the ancestors and the elvish folk. Certain funeral mounds were called Alfolar, elf hills, and sacrifices were made to the elves at these burial sites. This has led scholars to suggest that in the earliest forms of Norse belief, the elves might have been understood as the spirits of the dead, or at least that there was significant overlap between ancestor veneration and the honoring of elves. This connection makes sense when we consider that both the dead and the elves dwell beneath the earth, the dead in their burial mounds, the dark elves in their caverns and halls. Both require offerings and respect from the living. Both can bring blessing or curse to their descendants. Both represent a connection to the past, to those who came before, to the accumulated wisdom and power of previous generations. Some families claim special relationships with specific elves, lines of connection that pass from parent to child, obligations and privileges that were inherited along with property and position. A family might have an elf associated with their land, a being that had dwelt there since ancient times, that must be honored and appeased to ensure the family's prosperity. Moving away from such land might mean leaving the elf's protection, breaking a connection that had existed for generations. The elves also play a role in certain illnesses and afflictions. There was a concept of elf shot, the idea that mysterious pains or sudden illnesses might be caused by invisible arrows shot by elves. Livestock might be elf-taken, meaning they've been touched by elvish magic and would sicken and die unless the magic was countered. These beliefs reflect the understanding that the elves, while often benign, were also powerful and could be dangerous, that illness and misfortune might have supernatural causes that required supernatural remedies. Healing from elf shot required specific rituals, often involving counter magic, offerings to the elves, or journeys to places sacred to them to make amends for whatever offense had been committed. The wise women and cunning folk who knew how to treat such afflictions held important positions in their communities, serving as intermediaries between the human world and the realm of the elves, negotiating on behalf of those who had somehow run afoul of the hidden folk. The elves, in all their varied forms, represent the numinous quality of nature, the sense that the world is alive and aware in ways that go beyond the merely physical. Every forest has its guardians, every stream its spirits, every field its hidden watchers. The Norse understood that they shared the world with other forms of consciousness, other types of being, and that success in life required maintaining proper relationships with these beings, showing respect, making offerings, acknowledging their existence and their rights. This worldview is fundamentally different from one that sees nature as mere backdrop or resource. To the Norse, the land was not empty space to be filled with human activity, but was already occupied, already home to countless beings who had their own purposes and concerns. Humans were not the sole inhabitants of the earth, but shared it with elves, with spirits, with invisible forces that must be acknowledged and honored. Failing to do so was not just impious, but impractical. It invited misfortune. It made enemies of potential allies. It violated the fundamental understanding of how the world actually worked. As we move forward to explore other types of spirits and beings that populate the Norse cosmos, we carry with us this understanding of the elves, beings that are neither gods nor mortals, neither fully benign nor fully threatening, that occupy the spaces between the human world and the divine, that serve as reminders that we are not alone, that the world is fuller and stranger and more alive than any purely material understanding would suggest. The elves are the hidden folk, the good neighbors, the beings who share our world but remain mostly unseen, influencing our lives in ways both subtle and profound, requiring from us respect, courtesy, and the acknowledgement that the world contains mysteries we cannot fully comprehend or control. In the Norse cosmos, dragons and serpents occupy a place of particular significance, representing both the threat of destruction and the allure of treasure, both the cosmic and the personal, both the end of the world and the challenges that heroes must face to prove their worth. These creatures are not mere beasts, but beings of power and intelligence, often possessing wisdom, speech, and cunning that matches or exceeds that of gods and humans. We have already encountered Fafnir, the dwarf transformed by greed into a dragon, whose slaying by Sigurd became the defining deed of the greatest hero of the Volsung line. But Fafnir represents only one type of dragon, one manifestation of the WRM that appears throughout Norse legend. Dragons in the Norse tradition are fundamentally creatures of the earth, of caves and barrows, of deep places where treasure accumulates and where the old, powerful things dwell. The typical Norse dragon is a serpentine creature, long and sinuous, with scales that turn weapons, claws that can rend armor, and breath that may be fire or poison or simply corruption of death. Unlike the winged dragons of later medieval tradition, Norse dragons often move by slithering along the ground or swimming through earth as if it were water. They are ancient, living for centuries or even millennia, accumulating knowledge along with their hordes, understanding the world in ways that shorter-lived beings cannot. Dragons are fundamentally associated with treasure, with the hoarding of gold and precious objects. This is not mere animal instinct, but something deeper. Dragons seem to understand the value of what they guard, to take pleasure in possession, to be corrupted by the same greed that motivates humans. A dragon's hoard is not random but curated, built up over ages, each piece chosen or claimed for its worth. The dragon knows every coin, every ring, every sword in its collection, and the theft of even a single cup can drive it to murderous rage. This association between dragons and treasure creates a fundamental tension. The dragon guards wealth that could be used, that could benefit kingdoms and heroes, but keeps it locked away, useless except as an object of possession. The hero who seeks to claim dragon treasure is both brave and greedy, both serving his people by removing a threat and serving himself by gaining wealth and glory. The curse that often accompanies dragon gold, as it accompanied Andvari's treasure that Fafnir guarded, suggests that this tension cannot be easily resolved, that dragon wealth carries with it something of the dragon's own corrupted nature. Fafnir himself demonstrates the transformative power of dragon nature. He was not born a dragon, but became one, his form shifting to match his inner corruption, his greed literally remaking his body into something that could better guard and contain his hoard. This suggests that dragon is not just a species, but a state of being, that the hoarding of treasure and the isolation it requires can turn even other beings into something dragon-like. The dragon is what greed becomes when taken to its ultimate extreme. When Sigurd spoke with the dying Fafnir, the dragon displayed not just intelligence, but a certain grim wisdom. He knew about the curse on his treasure, knew that it would destroy whoever possessed it, and he warned Sigurd even as he died. This is characteristic of Norse dragons. They are not mindless beasts, but thinking beings who understand fate and doom, who see patterns and consequences, who possess knowledge gained through their long lifespans and their position outside the normal flow of society. But Fafnir is not the only dragon of significance in Norse tradition. There is Nidhogg, the terrible WRM who dwells at Virgelmer, the spring at the root of Yggdrasil. Nidhogg gnaws constantly at the world tree's root, working to bring down the cosmic structure, to undo creation itself. He is accompanied by countless smaller serpents who aid in this work, all chewing and tearing at the root, wearing it away grain by grain, year by year, age by age. Nidhogg represents entropy, decay, the forces at work against order and creation, not through dramatic assault, but through patient, relentless undermining. While gods and giants clash in open battle, while heroes fight monsters and win glory, Nidhogg works in darkness and cold, never resting, never stopping, always gnawing. His work is the slow corruption that affects all things, the gradual wearing down that no defense can completely prevent, the reality that everything built will eventually fall, not necessarily through violence, but simply through time and patient destruction. Yet, Nidhogg serves another purpose as well. He feeds on the corpses of the dishonored dead who come to Nastrin in Helheim, particularly oath-breakers, murderers, and adulterers. In this role, he is not just destroyer but cleanser, not just corrupt but corrupting that which has already fallen into dishonor. He processes death, breaks down what was, makes way for what will be. His gnawing at the root and his feeding on corpses are two aspects of the same function, the necessary destruction that makes renewal possible. At Ragnarok, Nidhogg will be present, flying over the battlefield bearing corpses on his wings. This image is both terrible and appropriate. The dragon of death and decay is there at the world's ending, harvesting the fallen, performing his function even as everything else collapses. And after Ragnarok, the dragon will presumably continue. For even in the new world there will be death, there will be decay, there will be the need for something to process endings and make way for beginnings. Then there is Jormungandr, the world serpent, the Middle Earth serpent, Loki's monstrous son who was cast into the ocean by Odin and grew so vast that he encircles all of Midgard with his tail and his mouth. Jormungandr is cosmic in scale, a creature so immense that his movements create whirlpools and storms, whose very existence defines the boundary of a human world. He lies at the bottom of the deep ocean, largely unseen, largely dormant, but always present, always there at the edge of the known world. Thor's relationship with Jormungandr is one of destined enmity. They have encountered each other twice before Ragnarok, and each time the confrontation has been dramatic and dangerous. The first encounter was during Thor's visit to Loki, when the thunder god was challenged to lift what appeared to be a cat, but was actually Jormungandr in disguise. Thor managed to lift the serpent high enough that one paw left the ground, which meant he had nearly pulled the world's serpent from the ocean, a feat so impressive that even the giant king was terrified, though he concealed it with mockery. The second encounter came when Thor went fishing with the giant Hymir. Using an ox head as bait, Thor caught Jormungandr and began to pull the massive serpent from the ocean depths. The world serpent rose, its head breaking the surface, its eyes meeting Thor's in a moment of recognition and mutual hatred. Thor raised Mjolnir to strike the killing blow, but Hymir, terrified by what was happening, cut the fishing line. Jormungandr sank back into the ocean, and Thor's fury at being denied his victory was terrible to behold. At Ragnarok, Thor and Jormungandr will have their final confrontation. The world serpent will rise from the ocean, causing the seas to flood the land. Thor will face him with Mjolnir, and this time he will succeed in killing the great serpent. But Jormungandr's poison will be too much even for the Thunder God, and Thor will manage only 9 steps before the venom overcomes him, and he falls dead beside his enemy. It is a Pyrrhic victory, both combatants slain, neither truly triumphant. Jormungandr represents the boundary, the limit, the line that must not be crossed. He encircles Midgard, holding it separate from the outer chaos, but also constraining it, limiting it. His presence is both protective and threatening. The world is defined by his coils, but should he release his tail, should the circle break, the boundaries dissolve and chaos can flood in. At Ragnarok, this is exactly what happens. The serpent releases his tail and rises. And with that rising, the protection that separated Midgard from the outer void is breached. Beyond these named dragons and serpents, there are others mentioned throughout the sources. There are sea serpents of various sizes, creatures that threaten ships, that create dangerous waters, that embody the ocean's hostility to human travel. There are serpents that dwell in lakes and rivers, guarding their territories, occasionally demanding tribute or sacrifice. There are the serpents of Nastrand, whose venom drips on the dishonored dead, and the serpent that drips venom onto Loki as part of his punishment. All these serpents share certain characteristics. They are long-lived, often effectively immortal unless slain. They are associated with poison or venom, with the corrupting, killing power of toxins. They are territorial, defending their domains against intrusion. They are greedy, hoarding treasure or food or simply their own isolation. And they are intelligent, capable of speech and cunning, not mere animals, but thinking beings with their own purposes and perspectives. The Dragon Slayer is a recurring figure in Norse legend, with Sigurd being the most famous, but not the only one. Ragnar Lothbrok, whose nickname means hairy breeches, earned his epithet by wearing special leather pants to protect himself when he killed a serpent that was threatening his future wife's homeland. Frodo, in Danish legend, slew dragons as part of his quest to prove his worth. The act of dragon slaying is the ultimate test of a hero. It requires courage to face such a creature, strength to stand against it, cunning to exploit its weaknesses, and luck to survive the encounter. But dragon slaying is never without cost. Fafnir warned Sigurd that the treasure would destroy him, and it did. The dragon Beowulf faced killed him even as he killed it. Dragon gold is cursed gold, carrying with the corruption of greed and the doom of those who seek it. The hero who slays a dragon may win glory and wealth, but he also inherits the dragon's curse, takes on something of the dragon's nature, begins a path that may ultimately lead to his own destruction. This suggests that dragons are not simply obstacles to be overcome, but represent something within humans themselves. The greed that isolates, the pride that corrupts, the desire for wealth and power that can transform a person into something monstrous. The hero who slays a dragon but then succumbs to the same greed that created it has not truly triumphed, but merely continued the cycle. True victory over the dragon would require not just killing it, but resisting corruption of its hoard, using the treasure wisely or renouncing it entirely. Dragons and serpents in Norse mythology are liminal creatures, existing between life and death, between the civilized and the wild, between the world and the void. They are powerful and ancient, wise and dangerous, necessary evils that heroes must face, cosmic forces that shape the destiny of worlds. They remind us that some threats cannot be negotiated with or avoided, only confronted, and that even in victory over them, the cost may be more than can easily be borne. They are the WRMS in the earth, the serpents in the sea, the dragons in the dark, forever gnawing, forever coiling, forever waiting for the moment when their ancient hunger can be satisfied. We have spoken of the Jotun before, the giants who dwell in Jotunheim and other wild places, who represent the forces of chaos and untamed nature. But the Jotun are not a single, uniform race of beings. They are as varied as the natural forces they embody, as diverse as the landscape of the North itself. To understand a Jotun is to understand that chaos takes many forms, that the threats facing order and civilization come from many directions, that wildness expresses itself in countless ways. The frost giants, the Hermersr, are perhaps the most familiar to us. They embody winter's deadly cold, the ice that can kill, the storms that bury settlements under snow, the freezing that makes the land barren and inhospitable. These giants are descended from Ymir himself, born from his sweat as he slept in the primordial cold. And they carry forward his legacy as beings of ice and winter. Their bodies are often described as being pale as ice, their breath freezing the air around them, their touch capable of causing frostbite or worse. The frost giants dwell in the coldest regions of Jotunheim, in halls carved from glacial ice, in fortresses built on frozen mountains where the wind howls eternally. They wear the pelts of winter beasts, wield weapons made from ice that never melts, and can summon blizzards and ice storms as easily as humans might gesture with their hands. In battle, they are formidable not just for their size and strength, but for their ability to freeze their enemies, to create treacherous ice underfoot, to blind opponents with driving snow. Thor battles the frost giants more than any other type of Jotun, for they pose the greatest immediate threat to both Asgard and Midgard. A frost giant who breaks free from Jotunheim and marches into human lands can bring winter's devastation with them, destroying crops, freezing livestock, making survival impossible. Thor's hammer strikes them down again and again, defending the realms of order against the encroachment of eternal winter. The battle between Thor and the frost giants represents the annual struggle between winter and the return of spring, between cold that kills and warmth that allows life. But not all frost giants are mindlessly hostile. Some are wise in the ancient ways, remembering times before the gods, possessing knowledge that even Odin seeks. Vafnir, whom Odin visited in disguise to test his wisdom, was a frost giant of great learning. The giantess Skadi, who married Enderar, was a frost giant associated with winter hunting, skiing, and mountain wilderness, yet she earned a place of respect even among the Aesir. These frost giants remind us that winter, while dangerous, is also a natural part of the cycle, that cold preserves as well as destroys, that the ice realm has its own beauty and wisdom. The fire giants, by contrast, are beings of flame and heat, embodying the destructive power of fire taken to its extreme. They dwell primarily in Muspelheim, the realm of primordial fire, though some are said to wander in volcanic regions or places where the Earth's inner heat reaches the surface. Their leader is Surt, the giant with the flaming sword who has guarded Muspelheim since before creation and who will lead the final assault at Ragnarok. Fire giants radiate heat that can melt steel, their bodies composed of or infused with living flame. They do not build in the traditional sense. Their halls are caverns where lava flows create natural chambers, where the heat is so intense that stone runs like water. They are fewer in number than the frost giants, perhaps because fire is more immediately destructive, consuming its own fuel, unable to sustain itself without constant feeding. But what they lack in numbers, they make up for in raw destructive power. Unlike the frost giants, who threaten through gradual encroachment and overwhelming cold, the fire giants represent sudden, total destruction. Where they walk, things burn. Where they strike, things are reduced to ash. At Ragnarok, when Surtur spreads fire across all the 9 realms, it will be the ultimate expression of the fire giant's nature, consuming everything, leaving only emptiness and potential for new growth from ashes. The mountain giants, or Burgersar, are perhaps the most neutral of the Jotun. They are giant of stone and earth, dwelling in the highest peaks and deepest caves, moving through solid rock as easily as humans move through air. They are ancient and slow, thinking in terms of geological time, concerned with matters that play out over centuries rather than days or years. A mountain giant might remain still for so long that trees grow upon their shoulders, birds nest in their hair, and travelers mistake them for part of the landscape itself. These giants rarely involve themselves in the conflicts between gods and Jotun. They are neither allies nor enemies, but simply exist, as mountains exist, indifferent to concerns of smaller, faster beings. But when roused to anger, perhaps by mining that cuts too deep, by blasting that breaks sacred stone, by disrespect shown to the mountain itself, they can be terrible enemies. A mountain giant's anger manifests as earthquakes, as avalanches, as stone falling from great heights to crush whatever lies below. Some mountain giants possess great wisdom, having observed the world for uncounted ages, seeing the patterns that shorter-lived beings miss. They might answer questions if properly approached, might share knowledge of ancient times, might even help those who show proper respect for the stone and the deep places. But they are slow to trust and slow to forgive, and their help always comes with conditions, with prices that might not be clear until much later. There are also the storm giants, or Verisar, who embody the wild weather of the north. The sudden squalls that capsize ships, the lightning that strikes without warning, the winds that tear roofs from halls. These giants are less substantial than others, sometimes appearing almost like living storms rather than physical beings, their bodies composed of wind and rain and thunder. They move across the sky, bringing tempests in their wake, and sailors and farmers alike fear their passage. Storm giants are mercurial and unpredictable, changing direction as suddenly as the weather itself, calm one moment and raging the next. They cannot be reasoned with in any conventional sense, for they lack the patience or interest to engage in dialogue. They respond to offerings and sacrifices, to rituals that acknowledge their power, but even then, their help is uncertain. A storm giant might spare a ship one day and sink it the next, not from malice, but from the simple unpredictability that is their nature. The troll wives, or Ursur, represent another aspect of the Jotun. These giantesses are often portrayed as particularly hostile to humans and gods alike, practicing dark magic, devouring travelers, stealing children. They dwell in caves and dark forests, in places where sunlight rarely reaches, and they are cunning and cruel. But the troll wives are also mothers and protectors of their own kind, and their hostility often stems from legitimate grievances. Their lands encroached upon, their children killed by heroes, their way of life threatened by the spread of human settlement. Some giantesses transcend the simple category of monster. We have already spoken of Skadi, of Geir, of Gunnel, giantesses who possess beauty, wisdom, and their own agency. There are others, Gjrr, who helped Thor, Jarnsaxa, mother of Thor's sons Magni and Modi, Grid, a prophetess whose wisdom rivaled any Volva's. These giantesses remind us that the Jotun are not simply enemies to be destroyed, but a diverse people with their own culture, their own values, their own capacity for nobility and wisdom. The sea giant, or Agrikin, are associated with the ocean's depths and dangers. While Agr himself is sometimes counted among the gods, or at least as a neutral power, there are other giants of the sea who are less benign. They dwell beneath the waves, in trenches and abyssal depths, and they are responsible for whirlpools, for sudden storms that rise without warning, for the mysterious disappearances of ships that sail out and never return. These sea giants are alien in their thinking, adapted to an environment where humans cannot survive, where pressure would crush and cold would kill in moments. They have their own kingdoms beneath the waves, their own treasures of drowned ships and lost cargo, their own concerns that rarely intersect with those of surface dwellers. But when they do rise to the surface world, when they take an interest in the affairs of ships and sailors, they bring the ocean's terrible power with them. There are also the cliff giants who dwell in the sheer rock faces overlooking the sea, and the forest giants, who are sometimes indistinguishable from the ancient trees themselves, and the cave giants who guard deep places and ancient passages. Each type of giant embodies a different aspect of the natural world, a different threat or challenge that the inhabitants of Midgard must face. What unites all these types of Jotun is their fundamental otherness, their existence outside the ordered world of gods and humans. They are the wild that resist domestication, the natural forces that cannot be fully controlled, the ancient powers that predate civilization and will likely outlast it. They remind us that for all the gods' power and human ingenuity, there are aspects of existence that remain untamed, that resist order, that operate according to their own laws rather than the laws imposed from Asgard. The Jotun teach us about respect for natural forces, about the danger of hubris, about the reality that civilization is an island of order in an ocean of chaos. They show us that the world is not arranged for human convenience, that there are powers that care nothing for our concerns, that survival requires constant vigilance and the wisdom to know when to fight and when to flee, when to oppose and when to negotiate. As we turn now to the specific creatures that embody these wild forces, the dragons and serpents, the spirits and monsters, we carry with us an understanding that the Jotun provide context for all these beings, whether descended from giants, allied with them, or simply sharing their wild nature. All these creatures exist in the spaces between the ordered realms, in the liminal zones where civilization's rules do not fully apply, where the ancient and the wild still hold sway. The tale of Beowulf stands at the intersection of Norse mythology and heroic legend, a story composed in Old English but deeply rooted in Scandinavian tradition and Germanic heroic culture. While Beowulf himself may have been a historical figure, or at least based on historical memory, his story is woven through with elements of the supernatural, with monsters that embody primordial threats, with heroic values that reflect the same worldview we see in the Norse sagas. Beowulf was a Geat, a people who lived in what is now southern Sweden, and his story takes place in the kingdom of the Danes, in a hall called Heorot built by King Hrothgar. This hall was a wonder of its age, a symbol of civilization, of human achievement, of order imposed upon the wilderness. Every night, Hrothgar's warriors would feast there, celebrating their victories, cementing their bonds of loyalty and kinship, creating through their words and songs a bulwark against the chaos of the outside world. But that chaos would not be kept at bay. In the darkness beyond the hall, in the marshes and wild places where human order did not reach, dwelled a creature named Grendel. He was described as a descendant of Cain, the first murderer in biblical tradition, but in the context of Norse mythology, we might understand him as something older and more primal, a being of the wilderness, hostile to human civilization, driven to destroy what humans create. Grendel was tortured by the sounds of joy and fellowship emanating from Heorot, the songs, the laughter, the celebration of human bonds. All of this was agony to him, for he was excluded from such fellowship, marked as an outsider, doomed to loneliness and rage. And so he came in the night, breaking into Heorot, seizing warriors in their sleep and devouring them, carrying their bodies back to his lair in the marshes. For 12 years, Grendel terrorized Heorot. The Danes tried to fight him, but their weapons could not harm him. Whether through some natural immunity or through magic, the creature was invulnerable to normal blades. The warriors tried staying awake to guard the hall, but Grendel always found a way to kill. Eventually, Hrothgar's men began sleeping elsewhere, abandoning the great hall at night, and Heorot stood empty in the darkness, a symbol of human achievement defeated by the monstrous. News of this tragedy reached Beowulf in Geatland, and the young warrior decided to sail to Denmark with a band of his chosen men to face this monster that weapons could not harm. This is the essence of the hero, not the absence of fear, but the willingness to face what terrifies others, to step forward when others step back, to seek out danger rather than waiting for it to come. When Beowulf arrived at Heorot, he announced his intention to face Grendel without weapons. If the monster was immune to blades, then Beowulf would fight him with his bare hands, matching strength against strength, mortal courage against monstrous power. This was not bravado, but strategy. Beowulf understood that this fight required more than conventional warfare, that facing the supernatural demanded a willingness to meet it on its own terms. That night, Beowulf and his men laid down and hear it, as if to sleep, but the hero remained alert, waiting. Grendel came, as he always did, breaking through the door with terrible strength. He seized one of Beowulf's men and devoured him quickly, then reached for Beowulf himself. But the hero was ready. He grabbed Grendel's arm with a grip so strong that the monster had never felt its equal. For the first time in his raids on Heorot, Grendel knew fear. The two struggled to the hall, smashing benches and pillars, their combat so fierce that the building itself seemed ready to collapse. Grendel tried desperately to escape, to flee back to his marsh, but Beowulf held fast, using not weapons but his own strength and will. Finally, with a terrible tearing sound, Grendel's arm ripped from his shoulder, and the monster fled, mortally wounded, leaving a trail of blood to his lair where he would die in agony. Beowulf hung Grendel's arm from the rafters of Heorot as a trophy, and the Danes celebrated, believing their torment was over, but they celebrated too soon. Grendel had a mother, a creature even older and more terrible than her son, and she came the next night seeking vengeance for his death. She broke into Heorot, killed one of Hrothgar's most trusted advisors, and took back her son's severed arm before disappearing into the darkness. Beowulf knew that the threat was not truly ended. A monster's mother demanded vengeance, as any mother would, and she would not stop until she had taken her revenge on all the Danes or been killed herself. Hrothgar's men led Beowulf to the Mere, the dark lake where Grendel and his mother dwelt. The water was foul and blood-stained, and when they looked into its depths, they could see serpents and strange creatures swimming in the darkness below. Beowulf armed himself with a sword called Hrunting, lent to him by Unferth, a Danish warrior who had initially doubted the hero, but now acknowledged his courage. Then Beowulf dove into the Mere, swimming down to the cold, dark water, deeper and deeper, until Grendel's mother sensed his presence and grabbed him, dragging him into her underwater lair. A cave somehow protected from the water, filled with air, lit by a strange fire. The two fought, and Beowulf discovered that Hrunting, though a famous blade that had never failed, could not pierce the monster's hide. Her skin was as proof against weapons as her son's had been, perhaps more so. She wrestled Beowulf to the ground, drew a knife, and would have killed him. But his armor, the mail coat that had been given to him as a gift, turned her blade. In desperation, Beowulf looked around the cave and saw, mounted on the wall, an ancient sword gigantic size, forged by giants in ages past. With strength born of desperation, Beowulf seized the sword and struck Grendel's mother with all his might. The ancient blade, forged by supernatural hands, cut through her neck where mortal weapons had failed. The monster fell dead, and the cave was suddenly illuminated with light, as if her evil presence had been casting shadow over everything. Beowulf saw Grendel's corpse lying nearby and cut off his head as well, taking it as proof of his victory. But when Beowulf tried to take the giant's sword with him, he found that its blade had melted from contact with the monster's poisonous blood, leaving only the hilt, richly decorated and covered in ancient runes. He took this in Grendel's head and swam back to the surface, where his companions had almost given up hope of his return, seeing the blood that had risen to the surface and assuming he had been killed. Beowulf returned to Geatland as a hero, celebrated for his defeat of the monsters that had plagued the Danes. He lived a long life and eventually became king of the Geats, ruling wisely for 50 years. But in his old age, a new threat emerged. A dragon had been awakened when a thief stole a cup from its hoard, and now the dragon was ravaging the land with fire, burning villages and farms in its rage. Beowulf, though aged, knew that as king it was his duty to protect his people. He went to face the dragon, though many of the companions abandoned him when they saw the creature's terrible power. Only one, a young warrior named Wiglaf, remained by his side. Together they fought the dragon, and Beowulf struck a mortal blow, but not before the dragon's fangs sank into the hero's neck, poisoning him with venom that no skill could cure. As Beowulf lay dying, he asked Wiglaf to bring him some of the treasure from the dragon's hoard, so he could see what he had won for his people with his final deed. He looked upon the gold and ancient treasures and declared that his death was worthwhile, that he had served his people to the end. He asked that a great mound be built for him on a headland overlooking the sea, so that sailors would see it and remember Beowulf's name. The story of Beowulf connects to Norse mythology in many ways. The monsters he faces, Grendel's mother, the dragon, are all creatures of the wilderness, beings that exist outside human order, that threaten the civilized world from the darkness beyond. They represent the same chaos that the Norse giants represent, the same threat that makes heroes necessary, the same forces that the gods themselves must constantly battle to preserve the order cosmos. Beowulf embodies a heroic ideal shared by both Anglo-Saxon and Norse culture: the willingness to face overwhelming odds, the importance of reputation and glory, the duty to protect one's people even at the cost of one's own life, the understanding that death comes to all, but that how one faces death is what matters. His story is not primarily about gods and cosmic battles, but about a mortal man who, through courage and strength, defends civilization against the monsters that would destroy it. The poem also reflects the Norse understanding of duality, of fate. Beowulf knows that he will die someday. All men do. What matters is that his death has meaning, that it serves his people, that it will be remembered. When he chooses to face the dragon in his old age, he is not trying to escape death, but to meet it on his own terms, to make his death as meaningful as his life has been. This is the essence of the heroic ideal in both Norse and Germanic tradition. The monsters of Beowulf, dwelling in marshes and dark waters, in barrows guarding hoard of gold, are the same types of beings that populate Norse sagas and folklore. They are creatures of liminal spaces, of boundaries between the civilized and the wild, of places where human control is tenuous and the old, wild things still hold power. To face such creatures is to venture beyond safety, to test oneself against forces that exist outside the laws and structures that make human society possible. Beowulf's story reminds us that the Norse heroic tradition extended beyond Scandinavia, that the same values, the same understanding of honor and duty, the same types of monsters and challenges appear throughout the Germanic world. Whether in Denmark or Geatland, whether facing Grendel or a dragon, whether told in Old English or Old Norse, the essential story remains the same: mortal humans, limited by time and strength, choosing to stand against chaos, to protect what they love, to face death with courage, knowing that glory and reputation are the only immortality mortals can achieve. As we move forward to explore the creatures and spirits that fill the Norse cosmos, we carry with us the understanding that these beings were not mere fantasy, but represented real fears and real truths about existence, that the wilderness is dangerous, that civilization is fragile, that courage matters, that some threats can only be faced by those willing to risk everything, and that the monstrous exist not just in distant realms, but in the darkness beyond every human settlement, waiting for the light to fail and the guards asleep. We have journeyed far through the Norse understanding of the world beyond the gods, exploring the heroes who achieved legendary status through courage and deed, the creatures that embody natural forces and primal fears, and the spirits that populate every corner of existence from the highest mountains to the deepest seas. What emerges from this exploration is a vision of a cosmos that is alive in every part, conscious in ways both familiar and utterly alien, filled with presences that demand acknowledgement and respect. The heroes, Sigurd with his dragon slaying and tragic love, Beowulf with his monsters defeated and final sacrifice, remind us that mortals can achieve greatness despite their limitations, that courage can overcome even supernatural threats, but also that glory comes with a price, that curses follow treasures, that even the mightiest hero must eventually fall. These stories celebrate human potential while acknowledging human mortality, finding meaning not in escaping death, but in how death is faced and what legacy is left behind. The giants in their varied forms, frost and fire, mountain and storm, stone and sea, represent the raw power and nature that cannot be tamed, only respected or opposed. They are older than the gods, embodying forces that existed before civilization, that will outlast it, that remind us constantly that order is an achievement requiring constant defense, that chaos always waits at the edges, patient and powerful. Yet the giants are not merely enemies, but also sources of wisdom, partners in unlikely marriages, individuals with their own agency and dignity. The dragons and serpents, from Fafnir guarding cursed gold to Nidhogg gnawing at the world tree's root to Jormungandr encircling Midgard, embody greed and entropy, boundaries and endings. They are creatures of deep time and deep power, intelligent and dangerous, representing both the allure of treasure and the corruption that comes from hoarding it, both the slow decay that affects all things and the sudden catastrophe that can destroy everything. To face a dragon is to face one's own greed, one's own mortality, one's own relationship with wealth and power. The elves and their diversity, light and dark, wood and water, mountain and sea, populate the spaces between human and divine, between material and spiritual. They remind us that beauty and blessing exist alongside danger and curse, that nature is alive with consciousness that must be honored, that help and harm often come from the same sources depending on how we approach them. The elves teach respect, courtesy, the importance of maintaining proper relationships with forces we cannot control but must live alongside. The Landvaettir, those spirits bound to specific places, transform geography into relationship, turning landscape into living presence. Every mountain has its guardian, every valley its watcher, every stream its spirit. To live in the world is to live among these beings, to be constantly in relationship with consciousnesses that predate human arrival and will continue after human departure. The Landvaettir teach that the land is not property but community, not resource but relationship, that thriving requires acknowledgement of all who dwell in a place. The Fylgja, those personal followers bound to individual fates, represent the Norse understanding that a person is not a single unified thing, but a composite of multiple aspects, some of which exist semi-independently. One's luck, one's fortune, one's spiritual protection. These have their own quasi-independent existence, can be strengthened or weakened, can be seen and affected. The Fylgja teaches that character matters not just socially but spiritually, that how we live affects not just our reputation, but our actual fortune in the world. The Draugr, those restless dead who cannot or will not accept death's finality, embody the failure of proper death and the consequences of greed and bitterness taken beyond the grave. They are tragic as well as terrifying, trapped in a state neither living nor dead, consumed by impossible hungers, forever denied rest. The Draugr teach the importance of dying well, of letting go of what cannot be taken into death, of accepting mortality rather than clinging desperately to existence beyond its natural term. The sea monsters, vast and terrible, emerging from depth that human eyes cannot penetrate, represent the ocean's fundamental otherness, its capacity to destroy even the most skilled sailor, its resistance to human mastery. They remind us that there are domains where humanity is not dominant, where our technology and courage mean little against forces of such magnitude, where survival depends on luck and favor as much as on skill and preparation. The sea monsters teach humility before natural power, respect for what cannot be controlled, acceptance of risk as the price of venturing beyond safe boundaries. Together, these beings create a vision of existence as complex, interconnected, and filled with consciousness at every level. The Norse did not see themselves as alone in the world, as the only thinking beings among mindless matter. They understood themselves as one type of consciousness among many, sharing existence with gods and giants, elves and spirits, monsters and followers, the honored dead and the restless dead, creatures of land and sea and air. Every action rippled outward, affecting these other beings, creating or destroying relationships, strengthening or weakening the bonds that held existence together. This worldview created obligations. One could not simply exploit the land without considering the Landvaettir. One could not live dishonorably without weakening one's Fylgja. One could not die badly without risking becoming Draugr. One could not sail carelessly without inviting attack from sea monsters. One could not ignore the elves without losing their blessing. Every choice had spiritual consequences. Every act affected relationships with being seen and unseen. Every decision either maintained or violated the intricate web of connections that made life possible. But this worldview also created possibilities. The Landvaettir could be allies as well as obstacles. The elves could bless as well as curse. One's Fylgja could be strengthened through right action. The spirits of land and water could be approached for aid and wisdom. Even the giants, for all their threat, could be negotiated with, married into, learned from. The world was dangerous but not implacably hostile. It responded to how it was treated. It rewarded respect and punished desecration. It offered help to those who knew how to ask properly. The heroes who populate these stories understood this. Sigurd succeeded not just through strength, but through understanding. He learned the speech of birds, gained wisdom from Fafnir's blood, navigated relationships with dwarves and gods and giants. Beowulf triumphed not by refusing all help, but by accepting weapons and armor as gifts, by working with others, by adapting his approach to the nature of each enemy. The greatest heroes were those who understood that the world was full of powers and beings beyond themselves, who knew how to navigate relationships with these beings, who combined courage with wisdom and strength with respect. As we conclude this exploration of heroes, creatures, and spirits, we carry forward an understanding of the Norse cosmos as densely populated, as alive and aware, as a place where consciousness takes countless forms and where humans are participants in a vast community of beings. To the Norse, the world was never empty, never simple, never fully knowable. It was filled with presences that must be acknowledged, with relationships that must be maintained, with forces that must be respected even when they could not be controlled. This is a world that produced the great heroes, that populated the sagas and folklore, that shaped how people understood their place in existence. It is a world where courage matters but is not enough, where wisdom matters but cannot solve everything, where relationships with the seen and unseen shape fortune and fate, where the boundary between possible and impossible is permeable and constantly shifting, where mortals can achieve legendary status but never escape their mortality, where the dead do not always rest and the living share the world with countless others. May these stories of heroes who face monsters, of creatures that embodied natural forces, of spirits that populated every corner of existence, bring understanding of how the Norse experienced their world. May they inspire appreciation for a worldview that saw consciousness everywhere, that demanded respect for all beings, that understood humans as part of a vast community rather than masters of an empty world. May they remind us that courage and wisdom, respect and relationship, proper action and acceptance of consequences, these virtues transcend any single culture and speak the truths about how to live well in a world that is larger, stranger, and more alive than we can fully comprehend. The heroes have had their tales told. The creatures have been named and described. The spirits have been acknowledged and honored. The living cosmos of Norse mythology stands revealed in all its complexity and beauty, all its danger and promise. And we, who listen to these stories and learn from them, become part of that continuation, part of the tradition that keeps these truths alive, part of the community that spans generations and realms, living and dead, human and other, all connected to the stories we tell and the wisdom we carry forward.